Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I will be reviewing Love is Blind Italy episodes 8 and 9. So episode 9 will be the episode for the weddings. Okay, so I just combined these two because I don't have a whole lot to say about these two episodes, so I thought that one video would be sufficient. Let's jump right back in. Okay, so we have episode 8 and we see that all the couples get to meet up again, as well as people from the pods also show up too. We see that Georgia is basically letting all the girls know what happened with her and Giovanni and that, they broke up, things didn't work out. We see Davide C from the pods, which I don't even remember seeing him when we were in the pods. And basically Eliza is really excited to see Davide C. It seems like they might have connected when they were in the pods. So yeah, she's pretty excited. Obviously we know that Eliza and Alessandro are also broken up. So I guess Eliza is ready to move on, possibly with Davide C. All right. And then we see Eliza is also letting everyone know what happened between her and Alessandro and that things are, they've broken up. Okay. We also see that Georgia is talking to a guy from the pods. I don't even know his name. I don't even remember, but she's also just trying to kind of talk to other people, get to know other people that maybe she might have also connected with while she was in the pods. So we see Giovanni walk in and he is not alone. He walks in with Federica. And I don't know why, but my jaw was just dropped. I was like, really? This guy's ego is so fragile. He couldn't even show up to this thing by himself. He had to walk in with Federica to make it seem like they have something going on. Come on now. Come on, So Federica basically pulls Georgia aside and she just wants to tell Georgia what happened between them. And Federica basically says that nothing has happened between them and that they've just been talking. But Federica lets Georgia know that Giovanni has been talking to her since the honeymoon in Morocco. Georgia sounds pretty surprised, but she's also not very reactionary, if that makes sense. She's just kind of taking everything in that Federica is telling her. And Georgia basically says to Federica that if this is true, right, if she's been talking to him since they were on the honeymoon, that Federica is perfect for Giovanni. And I think Georgia ate with that because Federica, what the hell, man? That this man is on his honeymoon with Georgia, still continuing this process. Why are you talking to him? Women are just the pick me vibes are crazy. I'm not saying that Federica owes anything to Georgia, but when you know that this man is still engaged and in this process, why not let him see that through? What are we rushing for? You're dying to be picked. Come on now. I would not walk in with a man like that. That is embarrassing. Come on. So yeah, Georgia is basically trying to say that Federica is no better than Giovanni. And I agree. Okay. So Georgia basically says she doesn't really care and that, she tells Federica that her and Giovanni broke up 2 days ago. And I like the energy Georgia's giving. She's not really reacting. She's not really getting angry. In her mind, she's well, things are done between us. Good luck, So Alessandro basically sees that Eliza is talking to Davide C. It seems like Davide C is kind of holding Eliza in some way, but Eliza is also kind of all over Davide C as well. Alessandro kind of gets angry and he's do you see this? Do you see this? Why is he grabbing her like that? And in my head, I'm Eliza's doing this on purpose. She has issues, man. And you know what's so ironic about Eliza? When we saw her in the first episode, she said something about how everybody she dated in the past was toxic. And I clocked that. And I was she is probably toxic. Because how is it that every man that you've been with is toxic? To me, that is a red flag. That statement alone, her saying that is toxic and is a red flag. I was there is no way. And lo and behold, Eliza is toxic because she was holding on to Davide C for dear life unnecessarily. I think she was trying to get Alessandro jealous on purpose. So it was annoying because Alessandro kind of got irritated and almost he wanted to come at Davide C. And in my head, I'm do not get angry on behalf of Eliza. She's not even worth it. Please. Luckily, nothing kind of comes of it and it seems like a misunderstanding and everything's fine. But yeah, Eliza is trouble, okay? The way she looks is not even good enough for the kind of trouble that she puts on. It's too much, okay? So we see Giovanni talking to Georgia And initially Georgia like didn't even want to talk to him. He would come over and she'd be like, leave me alone, leave me alone. Eventually they end up having a conversation, and you can kind of see that like Georgia's not really interested in it. Giovanni is basically saying something along the lines of, Georgia's trying so hard to make him look bad. And in my head, I'm like, Giovanni, you're making yourself look bad. Like, Georgia does not need to even be involved for you to be making yourself look bad. Like, you can just tell that he feels guilty, and, you know, he probably knows that he shouldn't have brought Frederica to this event. I think he might know that Georgia knows the full story, and the fact that he was talking to her even on the honeymoon. So I don't even know what Giovanni has to say to Georgia at this point. Like, just leave the girl alone, please, okay? Go be with Frederica, for God's sakes. You can go torture her. Georgia's tired. I'm tired, okay? So we then see Parmi and Gergana, and Gergana basically meets Parmi's parents for the first time. His parents basically say, Gergana meets Parmi's parents for the first time, and looks like it goes pretty well. They're having dinner, and Parmi's parents basically say that they do think it's very early for like marriage and a wedding. And I think that's probably their biggest reservation and hesitation. But in terms of Gergana, it seems like they took to her pretty well, and like that they pretty much liked her. So that's good, you know. We then go to Ludo and Davide, and Ludo is basically saying she has to walk on eggshells around Davide. Davide is confused because he's like, what do you mean? And then Luda is basically saying that they barely even speak to each other. And she basically says that the guy that she met in the pods, right? The Davide she knew in the pods that was like excited and funny and had all this personality isn't the guy that she's looking at today, right? Like, she almost can't recognize these two people. And she basically also says that Davide is more distant. And I noticed this too, where I felt like in the pods, Davide was definitely like, I felt like him and Ludo had better like chemistry, better conversation. So I don't know what's happened since leaving the pods, but Davide does seem more reserved, quieter, and more distant. And in my head, I'm thinking, I don't know what that's about. I think that Davide has kind of pulled back, and I don't really know why. If there's maybe something about Ludo that's made him just start to have a change in behavior. It's odd. Then we go to Karen and Nicola, and Karen meets Nicola's parents for the first time, and it goes really, really well. I was kind of nervous about this because, as we know, Nicola's parents basically said that they disapproved of this whole process and didn't even want to be filmed. So first of all, Nicola's parents were okay with being filmed for the dinner. You know, they meet Karen, and it seems like they take to her really, really well. So I was surprised, like pleasantly surprised, that they really liked her. And it seems like they're kind of coming around in terms of like this whole Love is Blind process, which is a good thing to see. And you can also see that, like, because Nicola's parents are kind of coming around, I think Nicola is also feeling less pressure and like almost more relieved, because you can tell that he does value his parents' opinion a lot. Then we go to Yoni and Alessandro. We see that Yoni wrote Alessandro a cute letter where she's basically just explaining how much she's fallen for him and how she feels so strongly for him. Yeah, and I think this couple is just so cute. Then we get to see that Parmi meets Gergana's family for the first time, right? And obviously this was like the anticipated meeting, because we already know that Gergana's parents were, you know, are not going to be that open to Parmi being Indian. So they're eating dinner, and Gergana's dad makes a comment about how Milan has a lot of foreigners now, you know, like more than it used to have. But the way he says it like it's a bad thing, like, oh, all these foreigners, you know. And in my head, I'm like, you guys came from Bulgaria, so you guys are foreigners too. I hope he's including himself when he's talking about all the foreigners in Milan, because what are we even talking about here? You guys are not even Italian. You're from Bulgaria. And you immigrated over. So what? But anyway, yeah, so I just found that to be a little strange. The dad basically says that he expected someone from Tuscany, right? Like, he expected Gergana to get with someone from Tuscany, but he didn't expect that the guy would be, you know, that he would be Indian. And I was like, oh my God. At the end of the day, like, Gergana warned Parmi about how her parents would feel. So that statement to me wasn't that jarring. I think it would have been more jarring if Gergana hadn't warned Parmi so many times about how her parents would feel about him being Indian. So, I mean, obviously hearing him say that, I'm like, well, damn, like, these people, wow, you know? But at the end of the day, Gergana warned Parmi about this, so he should have been prepared. Yeah, Gergana's dad doesn't really seem that receptive and happy. And at the end of the day, if he could make a comment about how he didn't expect him to be Indian, basically with Parmi being there, I could only imagine what his, Gergana's parents say about Parmi or about Indians behind closed doors. Yeah, if I was Parmi, I'd probably not go through with this, but we shall see, because in my mind, I'm like, it's such a problem when, your parents can't really get past your ethnicity. You have to think about even having children with those kinds of people. The children would be half Indian. Like, what will that look like in terms of them having grandparents and you wanting your kid to have a relationship with the grandparents? I don't know if Parmi is thinking about things that deeply, right? Because at the end of the day, when you marry someone, you also marry their family to a certain extent, right? And a lot of people have kids and they want the grandparents to be a part of their kid's life. What would that look like? I wouldn't be comfortable dropping my mixed children off with people that I know are prejudiced or racist. I would not. So Parmi needs to think that. He needs to think further into the future, because to me, like, this is fundamentally like still a problem. So, okay, we see Parmi and Gergana go on their final date. Gergana mentions that she hasn't been able to see Parmi in his day-to-day, and that's probably her biggest, form of like, oh, I don't know if this will work, because they've been kind of in this bubble with Love is Blind, but it seems like Parmi lives in Florence, so she hasn't really been able to see what it's like for Parmi, like in his real life, with him going to work and everything, and if they would be compatible in that environment. And that's a fair thing to say. Okay, so we see that they're getting ready for like the tuxes, and they do the dress fittings. They're just like preparing for the wedding. Not a whole lot to say about those things. I thought all the dresses looked really nice. And then we basically see the beginning of Parmi and Gergana's wedding, and they get up to the altar. And obviously, before they can even say whether they're going through or say yes or no, that episode 8 now ends. Okay, so that's where episode 8 ends. We're going to move right into episode 9. So this episode is the weddings, okay? So this episode opens up with us seeing Gergana and Parmi, and basically we see that Gergana says no, okay? Parmi says yes, Gergana says no. Shocker. I saw this coming, guys. I don't know about you, but I was like, I knew she wasn't going to go through with it, because she cares way too much about her family's opinion. It's obvious. Like, one thing I didn't hear Gergana say enough are things like, hey, I know that my family's not that open to you, but I am going to go through with it because I love you and I support you and I want to make my own decisions. I think that Gergana had this fear of letting her parents down, which she told Parmi about. I knew that this is how this would go, so I wasn't surprised by this at all. Gergana basically says that she's madly in love with Parmi, but says that she cannot, marry him at this time. And in my opinion, Parmi never really should have given this a chance. I think I understand why he wanted to try, because in his mind, he's like, okay, yeah, Gergana has said that her parents might not really come around, but I think Parmi was, he believed that their connection would be strong enough to override, the feelings that Gergana's parents had towards him. And I think that he was putting maybe too much faith in Gergana. That's what I think Parmi went wrong, because yeah, Gergana cares a lot about what her parents think. It's very, very obvious. She doesn't strike me as the kind of person that's just going to go against her parents because she really loves someone. She doesn't strike me as that at all. I feel like if anything, she wants to make her parents proud, and she wants to, she says that her parents did a lot for her. So she wants to, be able to make them proud of her. And she basically says at some point that her biggest fear is letting her parents down because of everything they've done for her so far. So if that's her biggest fear, she was never going to go through with this wedding. She just wasted Parmi's time, in my opinion. Why even pretend? What was the point? It's crazy. And another thing I'll say is, as much as Gergana is putting so much, on her parents and saying her parents don't support this and that, I think that Gergana also harbors some of these fears and judgments towards Parmi and possibly the Indian community. I just think she doesn't want to say that it's also her because it just wouldn't make her look good. She's blaming it all on her parents, but I don't think it's just her parents. I think she's also a part of that too. She just knows that saying these things wouldn't make her look good on camera. So there's also that too. Okay, then we go to Parmi, and this is after the ceremony, and Parmi's kind of just talking about his feelings and everything, and he basically says that, oh, well, you know, Gergana still loves me, and he basically says Gergana still loves me, and that she just said it's too soon to get married, so, you know, almost like we shall see what happens from here. And in my head, I'm like, Parmi, move on. Like, it's giving delusional. She is never going to, you're not endgame for her. She's never going to choose you in the end. Maybe she'll continue to waste your time if you let her. Like, what is the point? You know, if she's already saying no because her parents will not accept you, unless the parents have a change of heart and all of a sudden become not prejudiced overnight, what are we doing here? Move on. Like, if he continues to see Gergana, I'm looking at him sideways. Where is your self-respect? Move on. There's another girl that's going to love to be with you. And the thing is, Parmi's an attractive man. He could easily go get a woman that it could work out better. Gergana's not the one. She's not the one. Like, move on, please. Then we see Yoni and Alessandro, and they're preparing for the wedding. We see Yoni's parents came from South Korea, and they get to see Alessandro be in person. We see that the mom really likes Alessandro, but the dad seems to be a little bit more apprehensive about him. And the dad basically says that Alessandro strikes him as someone who kind of knows the right things to say around people, and kind of knows how to win people over, almost like he's like a smooth talker, you know, so he's not so sure. Yoni kind of stands up for Alessandro B and says that, you know, he treats everyone with respect. Like, you know, Yoni's just telling her dad that she hasn't seen any red flags in terms of that. I do know what Yoni's dad means about Alessandro B because I've picked up on this too, where Alessandro B seems like a very nice, kind, empathetic person. I think so. But I do also wonder, because something about him is giving like, oh, I'm just trying to almost like put up this act. Like, I just hope to God the Alessandro B that we've seen is who he is. That's all I can say. Because I don't think her dad is picking up on nothing here. I've picked up on it too. And as much as I like him and what I've seen of him on camera, I really hope that that's really who he is. And I think that that's what Yoni's dad is nervous about, because she's like, I hope that, you know, he's thinking, I hope that what I see is really who he is, you know? So yeah, her dad is thinking, is Alessandro B too good to be true? I think that's what he's worried about. Okay, then we go to Karen and Nicola, and we see that Nicola gets to meet Karen's son for the first time. It goes really well. Yeah, it seems like these two are excited, and like it's nice to see how the families have kind of come together. And, you know, initially Nicola's parents were not even wanting to be a part of this process, and now they're at the wedding, so that's very exciting. It's nice to see that Nicola got to meet Karen's son, which is like obviously a big part of her life, and it went well. So these things are looking good so far. Okay, so basically Nicola and Karen get to the altar, and both of them say yes. So this was the couple that surprised me. Let me know if they surprised you guys, because I wasn't sure about Nicola. I think that Karen has been consistent throughout. She really liked Nicola. Even from the pods, there was nobody else. It was always Nicola. Nicola was the one that was showing behavior that was inconsistent. He would say one thing, Karen would call him out for having behaviors that showed differently, right? So I wasn't sure if he was going to say yes. I was actually surprised that he did. But I'm happy that he did. I think that they have the potential, and I think that his family being able to come around and really support him in this process meant a lot to him, and I think it gave him more reassurance in Karen. But once again, you know, Nicola is marrying Karen, right? So I hope that he really saw potential in Karen as a partner, right? And it wasn't just because his parents gave their blessing in a way. And, you know, I really hope that, if that makes sense. So this is the one couple I'm very intrigued to see if they will be together at the reunion. So we shall see. But this couple did surprise me. And obviously, I hope it works out. But I also wouldn't be surprised if at the reunion we hear something different. So we shall see. Okay, then we go to Davide and Ludo. So I wasn't surprised by this couple. We knew that they were having some issues, some intimacy issues. It seems like in the beginning things were good, then they went through a period where Davide wasn't really interested in being intimate with Ludo, which I never think is a good sign. Davide just seemed like he was a little checked out, and he often also looked annoyed when dealing with Ludo. So I just was like, I don't know about this couple. Basically, at the altar, Ludo says yes, and Davide says no. Not surprised. He basically says there's a difference between how his head feels and how his heart feels. And his heart is telling him no, like to say no. So Ludo basically goes on this long rant talking about how did he say no because the woman that she is not who he thought was in the pods, or like, I don't know, like trying to insinuate that maybe she doesn't look the way that he would have liked, or like, she's different from what she was in the pods. She goes on this long rant, and in my head, I'm like, Ludo, just let it go. Like there's no need to now go on this rant about all the reasons why you think he said no. Like he said no, like it's just too much. She's a lot, but I do feel for Ludo because I think she was pretty hopeful that this could work out. And I feel for her because I think Davide really checked out a while ago. I think the changes in his personality and behavior showed that he wasn't really feeling Ludo for some time now. But I don't know if Ludo could fully pick up on that. So, okay, we see them talking after the ceremony, and Ludo is saying that she did so much for him. Like she can't really understand why he would have said no. Davide is clearly over it, and like he's kind of they're getting into these like arguments back and forth. He's trying to explain himself. Ludo doesn't really seem to be understanding what he's saying. And in my head, I'm like, this conversation is like, what is the point, right? Like clearly this is the end of this whole relationship. Eventually, Davide is like, yeah, it didn't work out, and he leaves. So that's that. Davide basically says he needs a woman that's going to fight, and that is stronger, and that will challenge him. And in my head, I'm like, Ludo doesn't seem like a pushover to me. She seems like someone that would have challenged him. So I found that those things that he said to be kind of strange. I don't know what Davide is looking for, but guys, if I had to guess, he's probably in love with his good friend, Roberta, the one that he bought, to the lunch with his parents, or maybe he's in love with the girl that he left the keys to his apartment with, because something about Davide is giving like, something's not right there. So I think Ludo dodged a bullet, because I think that if Davide had said yes, they would not have stayed married. Mark my words. I think Davide has some things he needs to work on. Don't get me wrong. Ludo is insecure and she has things she needs to work on too. But there's something about Davide that's just not quite right. So I think that it's a good thing he said no. That's all I can say. Okay, we then go to Alessandro and Yoni, and they both say yes at the altar. I think that this wedding was such a nice way to end this episode. Yeah, this is the one couple that I think will be together at the reunion. Fingers crossed, guys. Hopefully I'm not wrong. They were probably my favorite couple this season in terms of just being very unproblematic and normal. So, but even sometimes these unproblematic normal couples come the reunion, they're not together. You never know. So I'm just saying that I would be shocked by that. Yeah, I was just surprised by Nicola and Karen. That was the only couple that surprised me. Everybody else, I was like, I think I predicted it pretty well. I pretty much knew Yoni and Alessandro would say yes. I knew Gergana would say no to Parmi. And then I knew that Davide would not marry Ludo. So I feel like those things were pretty accurate. So Nicola and Karen were the only ones that I was like, oh, this is shocking, But let me know what you guys think. The reunion will be coming out next week, and I will be reviewing that as well. Would love to know your opinions on these episodes. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.